Today we're going to take this cute, fluffy, mentally unstable rat to the lands of Bretonia, aka modern-day France. A land ruled over by this tyrant and his French people. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the French, let me show you one so you can identify them. Here we have... Oh, no. Hold on. Barry, I said show the Frenchman, not the American. Fix it. Okay, so this is our modern-day Frenchman, dirty, rude, and probably wielding a baguette. But don't worry, we're going to get rid of them today. You see, as a British man, I'm genetically programmed for two things. Number one, to desire the utter destruction of the French. And number two, to invade foreign lands, genocide its people, and then claim I got there first. But how can this one little rat take on the French? Well, he's going to build a biker gang. Oh, and he can also build nuclear weapons. Let's go! Ikit Claw campaign, very hard, very hard. Now, as we are only really going to use motorcycle-type units, we need to get rid of most of this starting army, leaving us with just Ikit and some Doomflayers. We do get a Warlock hero, but he can't go on any kind of Doomflayer mount, so we're just going to have to keep him as an agent running around the map. Now, the first problem we have is that we can't recruit any Doomflayers until our settlement is tier 4. However, Warlock Master Lords can get on a Doomflayer mount, so we'll get a couple of them for now. We do have the Forbidden Workshop as well, where we can get some pretty crazy buffs for our Doomflayers and Doomwheels, so we'll be buffing them up as we go. Now, the first order of business, as in any good war, is to get rid of the nearby Spanish. So we're going to start by trying to take this Estalian-controlled province. And you might think only having a Lord and one unit isn't really going to get us very far, but we've got a lot of tools at our disposal. The Doomflayers can charge around and can't really be caught by most of these units. Ikit himself has a ranged attack when he's on foot because he doesn't have a mount yet. He's also not too bad in melee, has a lightning spell and an orb ability, so we actually have quite a lot of killing power in this army of two. So winning battles against infantry-heavy armies isn't too much of a challenge. I gave my new lords a renaming, Skinny Frank first of all, that's a name we came up with on stream the other day, I liked it, and the other one was called Baguette Smasher. No explanation required. Now, throughout the taking of the rest of this province, we had a bunch of battles in various different fashions, all kind of the same though. They had a lot of infantry, not a lot else. We just doom-wheeled the crap out of them. They could never really hold on to them. I kept the doom wheels moving as much as possible. We had those orbs that did a lot of damage as well. Ikit's ranged attack also is very powerful. Also, having 3 lords obviously helped. There was one battle that was a bit tougher. It was a choke point battle. We got pretty beaten up in that one. Skinny Frank nearly died, but we were getting stronger. Our characters were on their way to earning their Doomflayer mounts. Of course, putting lord skill points into buffing up the Doomflayers and in the Forbidden Workshop as well. Along the way though, Pirate Crab Lady Aranessa declared war on us, so that was great. I recruited another Lord Gottfried to defend Skaven because she was heading there. And then came the time to try and finish off the Estalian province, taking Margarita. I was still beaten up from that choke point battle, but I didn't have a choice because they were going to build another army if I didn't. So we had to get tactical in this one. I retreated my Doomflayers back over the brow of the hill so they couldn't see what we were up to. And we did have a pretty nice hilly defensive position up here. We did what damage we could as they were on their way up. All their missiles were over on the right side, so I sent the Doomflayers down there to mow them down so they couldn't shoot us. So they kept them busy, but the rest of the army, I wasn't quite sure how we were going to deal with it because there was a lot of melee infantry. Ikit and everyone was pretty beaten up, but I noticed that all the infantry was starting to gather together in one big pile, and it looked like our stars were all aligning as we prepared to send these men to Jesus, courtesy of a nuclear weapon. I guess Ikit got a 25 kill streak, and that put a swift end to this battle and to these Spanish McDonald's workers. And with that, Margarita was ours, as was this province, and we were now the unfortunate owners of Spain. Aranessa then came at us at Skaven Blight, but this was pretty easily won, to be honest. So I then returned the favor, attacking nearby Maragliano. This was a pretty sizable garrison with a lot of guns, but I thought I'd give it a shot, but I really shouldn't have. We could not win this. There was too many armor-piercing guns. I tried to beat up their lord with 2 of mine, but they just couldn't seem to really get it done. Ikit got routed, and with his 35 speed, somehow couldn't outrun the 21 speed zombie gunnery mob. So we couldn't win this one, but nobody died, so it's fine. I then had a Spanish rebellion on my hands at Margarita, with an Empire Spearman Doom stack, no less. We ended up fighting them, but on a pretty lucky map that gave us some choke points to use, which the enemy funneled into and swiftly got warped lightning to crap, so this one didn't take too long. And over the turn, of course, there had to be some elves being dickheads somewhere in this campaign, so along came Orion to fill the role. I decided to keep the pressure on Aranessa, though, sailing over to attack some of her undefended settlements. This was a good way to level up our boys and get them their Doomflayers in preparation for building our biker gang army. So we wasted a couple of their settlements before heading back home, only to find blech. There were some elves on the way, so we needed to underway our way back home quick as possible. Now, the first army that arrived was Orion, but he seems to have disappeared, and now there's a second army, so he must be hiding somewhere. I'm going to cautiously set up ambushes around Skaven Blight and try to catch him. Over the next turn or two, we can see both of the armies, and then huzzah! We got them. Ambush, they got a lot of missiles, we got a lot of rats. However, we only got one rat to start with, which means we gotta wait for the reinforcements, which means we can't really do a lot right away. So I have to get creative to slow down the rats to try and do some damage before they all escape, just like Orion is, leaving his entire army behind. Great leader there. Typical elven courage. I use a menace below to slow them down, and then drop a nuke on them, wiping out a few units. That buys us a little bit of time for our Doomflayers to get over here and mow some elves down, so we couldn't take great advantage of this, but we killed off 5 units and damaged a few more, which was actually going to help us as they attacked us straight away again with their other army, which was a lot of missiles, and this battle was pretty hellish, let me tell you. Although they did very kindly separate all of their missile units from all of their melee units, so they were all undefended, and we just ran them through as much as we could with all the melee infantry, ignoring that second melee part of the army for now, just getting rid of all the missiles. This took for fucking ever though, as I'd route the missiles and they'd come back, and I'd route the missiles and they'd come back. And there was just a shite a ton of them all over the place, but we routed the little bastards eventually. I can't complain too much though, because I got to kill a couple of thousand elves. Fantastic. I then punished them for their insolence and decided to get peace with Aranessa because we were nearly ready to start pushing on the French. I started to push a bit more northward in preparation though, taking out these beastmen that had very kindly taken out the rest of Astalia for me. I rolled up on their minor settlement, quite literally as Skinny Frank, Baguette Smasher and Ikit all had their Doomflayer mounts now, which did actually make them feel like a little motorcycle gang, charging around, again going after individual units, just trying to take them down, pick them off, wearing them down one at a time. Because it was all lightly armored beastmen units as well, we mowed through them in a matter of seconds, and they had no hope of holding on to us, so it was no issue mowing down these goats. Turns out though that there was a full stack of Morgor army hidden nearby. But it was much the same story again, just mow down any random little straggler units, drop a little nuke on their head where applicable, punt Morgor across the map, and then you're done. And that was pretty much the end of the beastmen in this region. I then took the rest of this province and sent myself an engineer all the way to Cologne, and built myself a sneaky undercity there. But guess who's back to be a pain in the ass? It's the Wood Elves again. Luckily, we could retreat away from them and just kept our distance until Ikit was ready, which he nearly was, building the biker gang army. I was plagued by this stupid Wood Elf army though. It came and sacked a bunch of my settlements a bunch of times. I fought it once and used a nuke on it and tried to wear that army down, but they just kept sacking my Spanish settlements and then made a lucky escape just as Ikit arrived with an army of Doomflayers, and boy did I want to finish off that stupid elf army. And then obviously it was the perfect time for Archon the Black to ask for 20 grand for no reason whatsoever, so I told him to fuck off and die, and then I felt a bit embarrassed because I remembered he's a skeleton. Now I kept up giving chase to this damn elf that had plagued me, but she was crafty and eventually managed to get away. So I decided, well, I guess I'll just kill off her entire peoples then, especially as they were looking to take out Grom by the looks of it, so I decided to come and help Grom out because I thought he could be a worthwhile ally to have in this war against the French and apparently the elves. Over the turn, Orion's army disappeared. I think Grom came and beat him up, judging by his tattered army flag. I then rolled up on Orion's trees and you would think burnt them to the ground, but instead, to ultimately insult them, I took it for myself. And then after taking just Kingsglade, Orion came along and said, "Oh no, please don't take my last tree." So, of course, I went and took his last tree. I managed to get them to come out to fight me. We dropped a nice nuke on their head, killing off a bunch of the units right there. And then, of course, just ran the rest through with our Doomflayers. So that's a lot of elf roadkill. You're welcome, world. Now again, I did opt to occupy this stinking tree, although I didn't really have any intention to really try to hold on to them, but over the turn I had an interaction with nearby Clan Angrand, who wanted some money, otherwise they were going to try and beat me up, and as they boarded Skavenblight, I said, fine, no worries. But I realized they also boarded Athel Loren. So I decided to check to see if they would be interested in owning these trees. They smelt a bit too much like elf for me, and what do you know, they would take Kingsglade, and they were pretty happy about it. We even got an alliance out of it, and what better way to insult the elves than giving their precious trees to dwarfs. So the true king of Eight Peaks was now the true king of Kingsglade as well. I did try to give him the Oak of Ages, but for some reason I wasn't allowed to do that, so I had to just hold on to that one for now. I then realized, hey, we can actually get an outpost now that we have an alliance with the dwarfs, but they don't really have any motorcycles, do they? Or, well, I once heard someone say that helicopters are just the motorcycles of the sky, so we're gonna get some gyrocopters, fuck it. I couldn't resist the ridiculousness of having dwarf units in my Skaven army. So over a fair amount of time I built Ikit up a big new army with 3 units of gyrocopters, a whole load of Doomflayers, and a bunch of Doom Wheels as well. We were now truly ready to take on the French. I'd also recruited Skinny Frank some Doomflayers, so he became Skinny Frank of the Hell Pit's Angels. And the same thing with Baguette Smasher, but I don't really know any other motorcycle gangs, so he just became Baguette Smasher's chapter. I think they call themselves chapters, these motorcycle gangs. Is it obvious I don't really know much about motorcycle gangs? Now my plan here was to sweep from south all the way to north, taking all the territory along the way, which started with Castle Carcassonne here, which was Grom's, but has now been taken by Arguelon, so we're declaring war on them, although that means war with all the elves and apparently the Empire. But it's a nice position to take, a big castle right down in the south, and it didn't take long for one of those elven factions to come and take the Oak of Ages off me, but that's fine. It's the Torgavan, it's not Arguelon, so I'm happy with that. We then began our push into the French territory, chasing down this forced march army that was desperately trying to get away from us. Oh no! Yeah, they died. We then came and took the coastal settlement of Brionne, rolled on up to Aquitaine as well, took that. We were starting off strong. But as I moved northward, planning to take Castle Bastogne and then circle round and take the other settlements back down south, I came to realise I hadn't done enough scouting and there was far more French forces around than I realised. They came and took Brionne back and rolled on Aquitaine and gave that a sack in two. So I came to realise, okay, I'm expanding too quickly, I'm going to need to work a bit smarter to be able to defend all these settlements, especially as I can't really afford to make another army for defending. So I came back to deal with these armies that were harassing me back south, and this one was going to be the first army to feel the full might of my motorcycle/helicopter gang. We were motorized, mechanized, and ready to kill the French, just like the Germans in World War II. Wait, are we the bad guys? No. We're definitely the good guys. We're doing the good thing, taking down the French, mowing them down with doom wheels and doom flares all over the place. I hit the Pegasus Knights with howling warp gale so they couldn't move, which meant the gyrocopters could just blast away at them. Although, to be honest, they didn't really do a ton of damage. I think these Pegasus Knights were just quite beefed up. Our army, though, was incredibly good at taking down infantry and not too shabby at taking down even the heavy Bretonnian cavalries as well, even though it's all doom flares and anti-infantry kind of units. We still got this French army done with. Now, I had left Skinny Frank back in Castle Carcassonne just in case anything came that way. There were 2 stacks converging on him though, so it was looking a little bleak for him, but even more bleak in the north as there was 4 High Elf stacks coming our way. Now, I didn't even know I was at war with the High Elves. I guess they must have made friends with Bretonnia and then united against us at some point. I guess I just missed the notification. So I came to realize at this point that there's no chance that I'm going to be able to hold all this territory with all these High Elf armies coming at me, so I'm just going to have to opt to raise them instead. Over the turn as well, the dwarfs decided that they didn't want to be friends with me anymore, so that ended my alliance and took away our precious gyrocopters. Scheiße! Now, back in Carcassonne, we had to get Skinny Frank out of there, and luckily he was able to just about get away, but then came back with the support of the other boys, and, well, we just mashed them and ran them through. I wish I had more tactically to say about these battles, but when it's all doom flares, there isn't really much to do than just charge them in. We then moved on to nearby Cornell and razed that to the ground, and we'd now more properly cleared out the southern sector. Over the turn, the stinking elves of Attain arrived though and came and took Aquitaine off us. It seems that elves were really going for us in this campaign, and perhaps that's my fault for spewing at least 60% of the elf hatred online. But as I sat here with 8 full stacks in my face of High Elves and Bretonnians, I wasn't really sure what to do here. So I fell back for a while and riddled my rat brain with what we could do, and then I remembered, hold on, I've got a rat brain. We are the rats. Let's get sneaky. Yes! So I started moving around, staying only in the trees as much as I could in ambush. This was going to be the only way to stop 8 armies honing in on us and to maybe catch them out and get them one at a time. We got one here that was in the massive Orcal settlement, so we of course went full biker mice from Mars on them, shout out 90s kids, and were mowing down Frenchmen like there was no tomorrow. Not that they did that in that cartoon, but they should have done. But yeah, not much the French could do here. We just mowed them down and ran them down and blasted them in the face occasionally with doom wheels, and I was really starting to feel the strength of this army from the Forbidden Workshop buffs. You can see the doom flares got a scheiße ton of buffs, the doom wheels as well now. Also from Ikit's skill points, we had the engineering skill up and warp smart, so we were getting a lot of buffs to attack and defenses. We then had one of the High Elf armies stumble this way in force march. We managed to get an ambush on them, put them in the bin. I also started ramming skill points into my lord's ancient cunning so that they could get better ambush chance, and that was going to help with this more sneaky playstyle that kind of seemed to be working. I also used the right to get one of those plague priests to go and spread some syphilis amongst the Bretonnians, so that might help to weaken them down a little bit. Now at this point I was still trying to get rid of the massive Orcal settlement. It was proving a little bit difficult with the High Elf interruptions, but we were getting there and eventually did manage to get an auto-resolve decisive victory, although I had started to notice that my doom wheels were always getting screwed over in auto-resolve, for some reason taking way more damage than any doom flayers. But anyway, we managed to raise massive Orcal, but now we were pretty beaten up and there were 2 High Elf armies just kind of right there. So now I was getting a little bit worried. I encamped with 2 armies to try and replenish and set the 3rd one up for an ambush, hoping maybe that would save us. Luckily, though, the two armies seemingly went separate ways, although maybe one's just hidden, but they're right there. Over the next turn, I just stayed where I was, trying to replenish more, but then, oh, scheisse. They came for us, 2 stacks, pretty tough stuff. We were pretty beaten up. We did have some units that were kind of healthy, though, so, For this battle, I bided my time, waiting for my reinforcements. They were harassing us with missiles, though. We did manage to get a hold of one of their tyranny chariots and teach them a fucking lesson. And the elves came in, but they all hid in the trees. And look at this perfect spot for a goddamn nuke, which I did have, but I couldn't see this, obviously, so I had no idea where they were. I knew their reinforcements were coming from that direction, but I didn't have much choice now. I tried to engage, first of all, with mainly just the healthy units. I thought maybe they would just get it done, but eventually I just had to get everyone in there and just see what happened. And as you can see, this battle is an absolute mess, so I'm not going to show you too much of it. It's pretty horrible to look at. It was pretty horrible to play. I just had to hope that my boys would wear them down and take them down. And we did. As I said, we're very strong against infantry, which they had a lot of. What we did struggle with, though, was single entities. We couldn't deal with them terribly well. They had dragons. But if you pile enough doom flares on top of them, apparently they get the job done. I wanted to keep the pressure up here, but I also needed to replenish a fair bit. And oh, by the way, Archon has arrived and taken Kinel, because obviously, at least he's not French or an elf, I suppose. But we continued pushing north, and slowly but surely we were getting there, wearing down all the armies that were here. The Ivres ones seemed to disappear. They kind of went down south and looked like they were going to attack my home provinces, but they didn't. They just disappeared, so cool. We were getting a lot of ambushes that were really helping, so the plan was paying off as we were dropping nukes on their strong cavalries and then mowing down whatever they left behind that didn't retreat off the map. This gave us the room to go and destroy Aquitaine, but then over the turn, suddenly an Empire army was attacking us. They had a lot of big shooty stuff, land ships, luminarchs, and while I mentioned that we did struggle with single entities, these ones weren't too bad, and again, just put a lot of doom flares on them. They just kind of go away. And then after that, it was mostly infantry and a bit of light skirmish cav to deal with, so that was the Empire and breakfast out the way. We then chased them down and managed to get an ambush on that, and that was the end of that. We then proceeded to carry on pushing on the Bretonnian settlements, taking Bordeaux. I decided to sack this, though, for a nice bit of monies, but before I could get to raising, one big stack came along, and we were in pretty bad condition, pretty beaten up. I didn't necessarily like my chances, so I tried for the retreats and just about managed to get them. I then decided to fall back and just replenish and build ourselves back up. Our Doom Flares were now nearly at max upgrades in the Forbidden Workshop, so they were getting even more crazy. We once again came back on Bordeaux and put it in the ground this time. The French shows didn't like that, though, as they sent 2 more armies to come and get us, but luckily, ambush saved us again. I then had to retreat out of there, however, as there was 2 more Bretonnian stacks nearby and 3 high elf ones on the way. While we were chilling in the trees, though, we did get attacked by another Bretonnian army that I tried to get away from, but I couldn't, so we had to fight this. We rolled across the bridge to get them, as it did happen to be a choke point battle, but that didn't make too much difference to us. We were ready to mow down some more French. We attacked them straight from the front. We came in with a little flanking party from the side, not that we really needed to, but that was as tactical as I could get, alright. I then discovered that, Oh no, the French have recruited some elves. That means they're French elves. I can't think of anything worse. I think I'm going to be sick. Alright, I'm okay now. Oh, they're still there. Yeah, right, we won the battle. Let's just move on. I swiftly attacked that remaining army and got rid of it as quickly as possible to save the world from that abomination. History started repeating itself, though, as again, we got French ambushes. We dropped nukes on them. Their cav ran away. We killed whatever was left. And we're going to get another one here. And while this ambush strategy was effective, it wasn't terribly fun, so I was auto-resolving some of these just to get them done. As such, over the time as well, I had been losing the occasional unit here and there, so my armies were getting smaller and smaller, so I recruited this random lord to recruit us some stuff back in Skaven Blight, and then he was just going to transport it over to my other armies. In the meantime, though, we kept pushing north, pushed on into the Mousillon region, took down Mousillon itself. The High Elves did have a big settlement in this region as well. That was their foothold into this French territory, so we needed to get rid of that to push them back a little. They did come at us with 2 and a bit stacks, which was a bit concerning, but the way it played out was favorable to us. Our reinforcing army came in right in the same spot as theirs, but about 20 seconds before theirs, so we had the advantage of being there to jump on them as soon as they arrived, and our 3rd army wasn't too far away, whereas their 3rd army was all the way over the other side of the map, so they couldn't do anything for most of the battle. So we mowed down the 2 armies that we had this advantage against, absolutely ruined them. A lot of their units were routed straight off the map as well because we were next to the edge, which meant their numbers advantage didn't really help them. And this was all done before this 3rd army had even arrived, so we were able to just jump on that with everything we had, and that was no problem. Lots of dead elves, a fantastic honest day's work. The beauty of fighting the battles though instead of auto-resolving is that I wasn't really losing any entities, so we would just replenish to full health, and after one turn of replenishment we were pretty much ready to go again as these two Bretonnian armies came straight at us. And it actually happened to be pretty similar to the last battle as we just mowed down the main armies and then our reinforcing army came in front of theirs, so same situation again, we were able to rout them off the map pretty quick, especially as they were Bretonnian, and for the most part these battles were pretty much a fire and forget situation. Just charge all the Doomflayers in and let them go to town. Oh, no, not again! No! Ugh. More vile French elves dealt with, and once again our army looks barely tickled. The land was now littered with a lot of beaten up French and elven armies, which we proceeded to clear up and get their pieces off the board. This cleared the way for us to get after Lyonesse and get the High Elves off of this continent. Now my transport army had finally arrived. I'd been sneaking them up in ambush to be careful. We needed to come back and take Castle Baston, so he waited there. Now at this point we hadn't heard anything else from any Wood Elf factions until Arguelon and Durthu arrived and took Castle Carcassonne off me, so we were going to have to avenge that at some point. We now met up with our transport army and replenished our armies as much as we could. I gave Ikit the regiment of renowned Doomflayers and the special one from the Forbidden Workshop, so two more just even more powerful Doomflayer units. Now over the turn, Archaon wanted to chat to me. I thought, oh scheisse, but he just wanted to trade, the shrewd businessman that he is, and so began the start of a beautiful friendship. We then rolled upon Castle Baston. There were no French armies in sight. I think I had depleted them for now at least. So we finally got rid of that, razed it to the ground, and now Bretonnia was mostly clear. It was just the northern section with their capital, Cologne, aka Paris. So we started to push north towards Paris, and on the way I attacked this Arguelon settlement, because why not? It was there, Durthu's a dick. And I decided to take this settlement because I realized that my boy Archaon is right here. He seems to control the Reichland and the fort here. He is bordering Gisero, so I decided to make a friend. I offered to trade the settlement to him in exchange for nothing more than his plain and simple friendship. We made a non-aggression, we made a little military access, and I hoped that maybe he would just branch out in this area and take it over. In the meantime, I continued pushing north, taking Castle Artois off the Empire. In hindsight, I realized I should have given that to Archaon as well, but I prepared to push into Cologne now. They had a couple of armies around Languille, but the big prize was now in sight. Our Undercity was still going strong there, by the way. That was nice. Their armies did come after us over the turn, thinking that they could take down the Hellpits Angels, but obviously, no. I did have to fight the battle, but you know how it goes at this point. Again, I was noticing that Doom Wheels were getting screwed on auto-resolves, even the Lords, so I did put them all back on Doomflayers a while ago. It was then time to get the final deed done as we pushed on Languille, undefended, smashed that into the floor, and then it was on to the big town for the finale, finishing off the damn French. They did have one big stack in there, so we did have to fight it. Obviously, we had no hope of siege equipment, so we had to try and get in through holes in the walls and doors, which I did try to blow up, but apparently you cannot damage doors or walls with a nuke, which is weird. So I learned that today. Also, once again, my reinforcing army appeared on top of the enemies, so they just got absolutely ruined when they arrived. I also learned another new thing that I haven't learned in 8 years of this game, is that Doom Wheels can actually shoot down walls. Who knew they were a piece of siege equipment? But it turned out I didn't actually need them to take down the wall, because somehow one of my Doomflayers snuck through the door. Even though we didn't take it out, the door must have opened. They went through it somehow and then got stuck on the other side. And then somehow, I have no idea, we managed to capture the gate, which meant it was ours, and we opened it, and then everything could just pour in, and yeah, not really sure how the hell that happened. They had a load of units in the box, but somehow we captured it with our one unit of Doomflayers that I didn't even try to leave in the box, so that was pretty much the beginning of the end. And naturally, the French didn't last long after that, so Paris was ours. I did actually take it as well as a prize and then finished off the remaining armies around, or at least tried to. One of them managed to escape out into the ocean, so we weren't quite done with the French yet because they still existed. But I discovered that they were actually heading for a settlement that they had over in Albion, surrounded by Norskans who they were at war with. 4 Norscan stacks there. I figured it was only a matter of time. So I stayed at home instead of giving chase. I waited patiently for them to die, got attacked by High Elves on occasion, but they were no trouble. Durthu was being a pain in the ass as usual, as he came and took Castle Artois with a big stack. We couldn't just leave him there because he might take more, so we went after him, ambushed him, put him in the ground, or, you know, he's already in the ground, he's a tree. Took Castle Artois off him, and this time I didn't make the mistake of raising it. No, I took it and gave it to my boy Archaon, and as this settlement was actually quite valuable, we could trade it for something equally valuable, bringing Archaon into the war with Arguelon. And we got a military alliance. You can see how much territory Archaon's got there, so you can imagine how strong he is and what's going to happen. I retreated back into Cologne and sat there with a nice tea and a freshly baked baguette as Archaon's armies descended all over Arguelon's settlements, obliterating them until they were mostly pushed back into the forest. It really pays to have dark friends in low places. Eventually, the message came in: Cologne, the French, had been destroyed. There was now peace in the French lands because there was no French there anymore. Ikit and his biker gang had done the world a service, no doubt. So that's the end of this story. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Thanks to any French viewers who have made it all the way through this video, constantly being bashed. I do appreciate that you understand it's a joke. But of course, being British, I do have a French bashing quota that I have to hit every month, so I do have to make these jokes, I'm afraid. Otherwise, I lose my British license, and then I can't drink tea, eat stodgy food, and stab people. So, gotta do it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, do check out the channel memberships, maybe Patreon. If you like this, I got more of this stuff right here. I'll see you in the future.